how it is. Hey, there we go. Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Code Noobs live stream. It's Saturday, February. Wow, I almost said September. It's February 10th. What the heck? February 10th at 9 a.m. Welcome, everybody. How are you guys doing today? Danny and Randy?
Doing great, man. Happy to be
Nice.
here.
Yeah, me too.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yeah, I feel tired, but I look awake, I think. I don't know.
Dude, all week I've been having that problem where my brain's like super awake, but like physically I'm exhausted, and it's like that
Yeah.
combination. Oh, I hate it.
I already had one cup of coffee and I'm on number two, so I'll perk up
Always.
real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, any crazy news this week? What have you guys been working on?
I've been doing this Red Team Capstone Challenge on Try Hack Me. They got
Ooh,
14 virtual machines all linked together with firewalls and between them. And basically the goal is to find a whole bunch of flags throughout the system. It's pretty intense. I've spent, I think, probably about 6 hours on it so far, and just barely through enumerating the first three machines that I'm encountering.
nice.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Nice.
That's like some real world hacking stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Very cool. What have you been up to, Danny?
I'm pushing a couple feature updates to an app for a client today, actually, after later on today. And then we also
Nice.
got the accountability tracker done, which is cool, which will be
Yeah,
a nice
for our
bonus for
group
people.
mentoring. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really gonna help a lot of people in group mentoring. Keep accountable and keep working hard
I
on
think also
becoming a
just see how
developer.
much you've done too, because I think it's
Yeah,
like easy when you're learning, it's so easy to see how much you have to still learn and
yeah,
how much you don't know, but you forget how much you've actually like learned, over the
yeah.
time. And I
That's
think
one of the
that's
things
important.
that I think is really cool about that, right? It lists like everything you should know about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So you can literally go through and be like, I know that, I know that, I know that. Oh,
Yeah.
but I don't know all this stuff, or, all the stuff that you need to learn. So if you guys are looking to learn web development, that's a great asset for you guys. So jump into group mentoring and get that for free. Anyway, so today's topic is how to land your first job as a web developer. And Randall, you want to like make a little?
Before we get into that, for everyone watching out there, let us know. Have you started applying for jobs yet? Are you encountering difficulties uh, with jobs? We actually had a post from someone earlier in the week. I think it was Leonor who
Yeah,
found his first job.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
awesome.
congratulations. And
Congratulations, Leonore. Here's a little golf clap for you.
well
Keep
done.
up the good
Yeah,
work,
so
and everyone else in here, keep up the good work too, because you'll be there soon if you aren't already.
so just post a comment below. Let us know where you are. Are you applying for jobs yet? Do you think it's too early to apply for jobs? Are you facing frustrations applying for jobs? If so, what are those? And then we can address
Mm.
some of those in this Facebook live stream.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great topic, and I actually have a big list I wrote all week of different things
Nice.
that people can do to land your first job because it's not as easy as it used to be for
You know what's funny?
developers.
I was thinking about it too when we came up with the topic. Is like it is like changed so much from what it used to be. Because like I remember this is going back, obviously, but like you used to go in and talk to people, physically turn in applications. Like there had to be
Mm-hmm.
direct communication with the hirer, all
Hmm.
the whole process. And now
Yeah.
it's like you can submit like it feels like endless applications, and you never know if any person's actually looking at them. It's very hard and feels very what do you call it? Like alienating almost sometimes now. And so it takes
Yeah.
a lot of work to get through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the truth. A lot of times, those applications, anything that you're applying for online, is probably being filtered by some sort of AI engine or job filtering engine before it even sees human eyes. So, um,
Chris
yes,
made a
that's
good
pretty
point too, where he
important.
said he's not applying, but he's looking at entry level positions to see what the requirements are. That's always
Mhm.
a really good method is see what these jobs actually require of you to have so you can start building those skills.
Yeah, I will say this. I've seen some entry level jobs that have like ridiculous requirements, and a lot of
7 years
times,
of experience.
Yeah.
yeah. And I'll say this just from working in the field, like a lot of people who are not in tech, like if you're applying for a position where the hiring manager is not a developer themselves, they usually just know buzzwords and they don't actually know like what any of that means. So they write a lot of that stuff in those applications. So don't be discouraged by seeing like 30 different technologies, because probably they just need somebody who understands HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then
Yeah.
like everything else you can probably figure out on the job. And you just by what you probably already know, you can talk over their head too. If you're like in an interview with somebody who doesn't understand tech,
Yeah.
they just know buzzwords for the most part. So don't be discouraged by seeing like crazy requirements, Chris, and everybody else watching.
So I
So
was thinking that it would
yeah,
be pretty nice because we've all gone through the whole learning, like transitioning careers. So we were all working as something else previously.
yeah,
While working doing that, we learned coding and then we went on to find jobs doing that stuff. So I thought it would be helpful for people if we just went around real quickly and just let everyone know how that happens so that they could see number one, that there's hope, and number two, that there's a few different strategies that people use.
yeah, absolutely. I'll go first, actually. I don't mind.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll say this: when we were in, like this is actually my first point on my list, actually, and that is start now, right? No matter what level you're at, whether you have just started to learn HTML or you know like everything under the sun, start applying for jobs now, because here's why. You may not get all those jobs, but it will give you experience in just having that conversation and feeling comfortable, right? Because if you wait till you're like a super skilled developer to start applying, you're going to get thrown some like curveballs when you start talking to people. And so I suggest starting now. In fact, to go back to your question, is when we were in the boot camp, that was actually when I got my first work as a developer. And the way that I did that was through a mutual friend, right? I had a friend who actually owns like a construction company, and he needed a website, right? And so that's one of the best ways is rely on trust that you've already built through friends and relationships or friends of friends, or even just calling local businesses and making it clear that you are a local person. Like, hey, I live
Yeah.
in the same city as you. That actually makes people's ears perk up. And they're like, oh, this isn't just some random dude who's calling everybody under the sun. This is somebody who's like local and knows me and knows the challenges of like this area and the market that I'm in. So that tends to work really well. The other thing I would suggest, which is like what I did when I was in boot camp, is I didn't know everything. Like I didn't know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript not nearly as well as I do now. And so I built the website for this company using a low code solution. I use Squarespace, and that's totally cool. Like businesses are
Yeah.
cool with that. And it helps you as a developer because believe it or not, they're not like no code, and you can learn a lot about design and how websites function by using some of these low code solutions like Squarespace or Wix or whatever you want to use, right? um
Yeah.
so that was like my first thing. And then really to get into the startup, I leveraged knowledge I already had, right, which was like in cryptocurrency. And I leveraged that because you may not realize it, but the other skills that you have from your previous work will actually help you get a job in development, right? Because there's a ton of people who know development, right? And that's the challenge is you're in a pool of other people who basically know all the same stuff you do. And it's not that hard to learn software development or web development. So you have to distinguish yourself. So one of the best ways you can do that is lean into the experience you have elsewhere. Like I have a ton of experience with other stuff. I used to do SEO and digital marketing. So that's huge too. That's helped me. But anything else that you have, like, whatever it is, whether it's like project management or restaurant management, right? Go after like restaurants or go after any company that you've worked for in the past. So that's my experience. And I think that's super helpful if you just start now and go after companies that you already sort of understand their business model. How about you
That's a
guys?
good. Yeah, those are good. I think I wanted to reiterate the applying now approach. I think is really good though because I did that too when we first started at the I you know when we first started at the boot camp. I hadn't actually applied for a job like you know in like really applied in like years because I had been teaching for over a decade. So when I got other adjunct positions, it wasn't hard for me to get a position. It was pretty easy. So
Yeah.
like I started applying right away too, and I did a bunch of interviews, and it was probably one of the most helpful things because it one gave me a sense of like, what does this interview process look like for companies?
Yeah.
What are the steps? And I got through. Actually, I mean, I got to the very end in a bunch of them, and like that was all just to my ability to talk and communicate with people. Actually, like got me through to the very end. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised. Like I literally had people tell me on the phone, like, "Oh wow, you're like really communicative for a developer." Like most of them
I
like can't even like are afraid to talk to people, and like
yeah.
those kind of skills, they need that because they want people that can communicate,
Yeah,
which
that
is
literally
important.
happened to me yesterday. I got on a call with somebody and this was for other work, but I got on a call with somebody and I told them I was a developer and they're like, "Really? You're very, very well spoken for a developer." And I think that's actually a really good point is that improving your soft skills is actually a great asset as a developer because believe it or not, you communicate pretty much nonstop all day with other developers. So having that skill set is really important. Can you guys suggest any books for anybody who's trying to improve those soft skills of communication? I know like one off the top of my head.
I would actually say forget books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea for communication. I'm sorry. Just
Really?
start conversations with strangers
Ah, that's a good one
in
too.
coffee shops when you're waiting in line. Just stupid. It can be like, what's the weather's crazy today, or like,
Yeah, that's a
what are
really
you
good
doing?
Do you
point.
know what time
Just
it is?
yeah, literally. You can start with anything and
I
just
do that all the time, even when I'm wearing a watch.
Or you could
yeah,
be like, "Hey, I'm a web developer."
yeah, like whatever,
And
right?
you're like,
Just
"Great."
Not a
No,
bit.
I was
just
gonna
Yo,
say,
actually, that would be a great way to find a job. Just start
yeah,
out. I'm a web developer. Do you know anyone who needs one?
yeah,
Because guaranteed, I hear that all the time. Everywhere I'm going, like whether I'm walking places at coffee shops, people are always talking about how they're searching for developers.
yeah.
So, like, no matter how much it might feel like there's no jobs out there, literally all day, all over the place, I hear people saying, "Oh, we're looking for developers. We need more developers. We need skilled developers." Like,
yeah.
that's all I
You
hear.
actually
Yeah.
gave me a great idea, and I'm going to implement this. Everybody who joins group mentoring from now on is going to get a custom shirt that says, "Yes, I am a web developer." And that way you can wear that shirt everywhere, and people will stop you on the street and ask you to work.
That's a good idea.
Seriously, we're going to
That's
do that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we're absolutely going to implement that.
That's a good
Mhm.
idea. I
Yeah,
am going to say too, the reason why I do say though, forget books is because I mean, dude, I come from a teacher, I talk to people all the time, and like, I notice that like, even if you read a book for communication skills, if you don't practice it, it does not matter because you're
it's
still
true.
going to get nervous, you're still going to get scared, you're going to still run into
Yeah.
all those problems that prevent you from communicating clearly. So you
No,
have to practice.
that's 100%. I mean, I think especially as men, we have this huge fear of rejection. It's just something that's like sort of ingrained in men, and uh, breaking through that is such a powerful thing, right? When you feel comfortable, and I think a lot of people forget that we live in this world of isolation now, and a lot of people love
Yep.
talking. Like they really miss that stuff, especially after like COVID and stuff like that. I had a conversation the other day at the supermarket, and the lady at the checkout counter literally held my receipt hostage and wouldn't hand it to me because she wanted to keep talking to me. And I was like, I have stuff to do. Come on, give me the receipt. But
But
people
it
want to
shows
talk.
people are
So if you
starved,
get that
dude.
skill, yeah,
Yeah.
super powerful.
So
Mhm.
in
What
addition
else
to
you
that, I
guys
would
got?
say like I would also say like, networking, leveraging who you know. Like I got my first job, it was my partner, her mom is in development. She worked
Yeah,
for a company a long time ago, helped them with something she couldn't do it anymore. And so I took it over. And like that's
nice.
a great way too, because when you know people, they can speak to your strengths and they trust you. So it just takes that trust, like you said, right? And carries
Yeah.
it over, which I think is
Yeah.
important.
And I think we really need to stress that is the number one reason why it's so difficult for people to get a job as a developer right now is because companies need to trust you. There's so many people who have this skill set that's it's not that hard to learn, but the biggest thing that's going to help you in getting a job is building trust or having trust. And so any way that you can do that and prove that you are like qualified, right? Like a company doesn't want to hire you because there's a risk in that, right? That you may not be able to do what they think you can do or what they need you to do. And so if they can trust you from the beginning, it's going to be way easier. And that's
Well,
why
it's just,
networking matters so much because
yeah,
somebody
it's
will
also
vouch. Go ahead,
it's
sorry.
also like no, no, it's cool. It's also like saying you're local, right? because when you say you're local to somebody, they know you're available and you can be
Yeah.
reached. Because like there's so many like companies that are out there that are like in other countries and stuff that are trying to build websites for people, and like that
Yeah.
scares people because they, who the hell are they going to contact if something goes wrong, if they're having problems, whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think trust, building on your community, it's all good. I think also too, like I would also add just like besides like applying, obviously, like reach out to people, share your code, and in addition to that, I would also say have some footprint online because that has gotten more and more important over the years. So like having like a blog where you write about like, your journey through tech or something, or like it doesn't have to be anything impressive, but just something that shows that you care, you're interested, engaged.
Yeah. I want to say, like, I want to add to that point two things. Number one is, um, yes, definitely have a social media presence or some sort of presence that says I'm a developer, but then also go and look at your social media because that's what somebody else is going to do. And if you have, you know, tons of pictures of you like drunk at parties or whatever, you're also sending an impression to people. So make sure that you also clean up your social media. Like if you have junk on there, get rid of it, make yourself look more professional, and definitely have a portfolio. I think that's huge as well because that's probably
Yeah.
like the number one question that people are going to say when you're like, hey, I'm a developer. They're like, cool, can I see your portfolio? Right. And that's something else I wanted to like touch upon is when you're starting out, there's sort of this catch 22 of I want to build websites for people, but I don't have a portfolio or haven't built projects. So no, one thing that I would suggest is go out and offer websites for free because it helps you practice. There's a low expectation for it. So a company's not going to get angry when like it takes longer than you think or whatever, right? Because you're doing it for free, and then you can leverage that into maintenance. So you can build a website for free, and then say, "Hey, I offer maintenance packages at this price. Otherwise, it's up to you to sort of maintain this website." And a lot of companies are going to be like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's do that," because it's mindless, right? You've already built the website, you've proved yourself, and they're going to be like, okay, like I'm not going to be able to maintain this website or make changes or add stuff. So you can charge maintenance on them. What do you got, Randall? Any
Yeah,
gold in
so
there?
I actually got jobs two different ways. And so the first thing was when this was like 20 years ago, I graduated with a degree in physics and I learned kind of an obscure technology at the time called Fortran, which even though Fortran was from 1977, I graduated in the early 2000s, so like C++ was more popular, but I knew this obscure technology that not many people needed. And then there was a government contract where they needed people who knew Fortran, and I was just I did apply far and wide. I did like the shotgun approach with my resume, and not
Yeah,
like a LinkedIn one click. Like I actually had to look up these companies and look up what jobs they had and write cover letters individually for every single one. Didn't
yeah,
have a sweet app like coverbetter.io or anything like that. And but I wrote each single one, and it was just right place at the right time, knowing the right technology. I landed that job. But so that was like that's one method is just, you know, kind of resume spraying.
yeah,
The other thing more recently is two opportunities this past year just from talking with people like we're talking about, saying that I'm in cybersecurity.
yeah,
And both times just from talking with them, developing rapport, they both offered me positions. And it was because I mean it's an in-demand field, but also they can see everything that I've done, all the work that I've put in on my own has been very helpful.
yeah,
And like how you mentioned early starting for jobs, a lot of people have been asking like, how do I get started in cybersecurity? And so I say probably the best way is starting on Try Hack Me, but also one of the best things you can do is just get a remote help desk job, because
mm,
if you work a remote help desk, particularly for multiple operating systems, so not like vendor specific, then you're going to learn Windows, you're going to learn Mac, you're going to learn Linux, you're going to learn all types of different stuff. And that's the basics of cybersecurity anyway. So you're getting paid and you're learning everything that you need to know. And then you're going to have this whole base of knowledge to actually build your cybersecurity career on top of. So that's probably one of the best ways to go about getting started in cybersecurity.
I
Yeah,
like,
I wanted to say something too, because like I know when we first started out, like I remember there was like, a bunch of layoffs and stuff with these big tech companies. And I was like, oh man, originally I was like, did I pick the worst time to get in this and all, But you know, it's easy to like look too at like the news and stuff and see all these huge tech companies like laying off like 10,000 people and all and think like, oh, you know, developers are it's like that's the past. But there's always a need for it. Like technology's not going away. And like
Yeah,
I think that's like a lot of us are talking about like not these huge tech companies, but smaller ones because everybody needs something. And most of them, those people can't find anybody because everybody focuses on these big tech companies. So there
totally.
is a ton of work out there, I think. You just have to also, you know, you have to put legwork in to find it all sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, most developers, especially when you see these headlines and these hyped up like YouTube videos that say, "Oh, I learned web development and got a job at Google in 3 months." That's not reality. Like that is a hyped up headline. And the truth is you have a way better chance finding a job as a developer for a smaller tech company or even just a local business because they need work, and they need, they want to build an app or whatever it is. So lean into that stuff. Chris said this in the chat here is that he has a local Facebook group, or there's a local Facebook group. And there's pretty much always one of those. Like there's one for my town. Go in there and just say, hey, I'm offering, a free website to the first person to respond or whatever. And you're going to get more than one response, right? So that's a great way to do it as well. Like go after the low hanging fruit. Don't try to get a job at Google because they can pay, and also they have options. Everybody wants to work at Google, so it's going to be a lot more difficult. But if you can prove like, hey, I've worked for 20 other companies before, smaller tech companies, it's a lot easier to get a job at Google. That should be like a long-term goal, not my first job ever was at Google. That's sort of unrealistic. Go ahead,
Plus,
Rando.
one thing about having multiple jobs is it gives you stability. So if you
Mhm.
just work for Google, you lose one employer and you're done. But
Yeah.
you have five different people that you're working for. You lose one of them, they're still cool. You lose two, three. Remember that one time when I was working for like five hospitals at the same time, and
Yeah.
I think three or four of them let me go all at the same time?
Yeah.
Man, that was rough, but you can still survive because you still have, you know, it's not all of them.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. I have some other ones. You guys ready? Got some gold here. So
Hmm.
this is something that a recruiter told me about once, and I never really thought about this. So if you are applying on LinkedIn, let me say this actually before I get into that, is the spray and pray sort of method. I think that's decent, but honestly, I've learned from sales that if you want to sell something to somebody, you have to have at least 8 touch points, which means you've made contact with them 8 different times. And when you're applying for a job, you're essentially selling yourself. So you should actually find the jobs that you really want, I think, and make multiple touch points. Like apply with an application, go in person, reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, whatever it is, right? Like as many different ways as you can get in contact with this company, because then they're going to start talking internally, be like, hey, this guy Russell keeps applying for jobs. Like maybe he's really serious about this job, right?
Who's this
It's like,
Fuke guy they keep mentioning around the water cooler?
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly
so
the
you're the
point though, right?
Fuke they're talking about.
Yeah. So all right, back to my other point is on LinkedIn, recruiters use, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like some sort of LinkedIn thing that they can use, and it sorts resumes, right? And it does it using SEO. So one thing that you can do, and I've noticed a definite change, is you can optimize your LinkedIn profile, right? So if you want a job as a front end developer or a back end developer or a full stack developer, you need to write that multiple times in your application or in your LinkedIn profile. And the different technologies that you should also be writing those, because when they search, they're going to search by what they need. They're going to say like HTML, React, like whatever different technologies they're using. So those things should show up in your profile, and you should have, I don't know if you guys know like SEO practices, but essentially you're just injecting your profile with keywords that somebody's going to search at some point. And that will actually make your profile show up for recruiters and companies when they're searching for people.
Oh,
That's a huge hack that somebody taught me.
really, really important one too. And this is actually from Randy, but when you told us about the resume thing, you
Mm,
know, every time you submit a resume now, it's not read by a human first. It's read by some kind of
Yeah.
algorithm or like AI or something. And so formatting your resume actually for that is important. And the way
Yes.
to do that is make it simple. It doesn't need to have huge
Yeah.
images and weird formatting. Like if you look at all of our resumes are like super simple. It's like
Yeah.
sections. That's it with what the stuff is. Nothing
Yeah.
fancy because that makes it way easier for these things to read, and then your chances of getting looked at are higher.
Yeah. And make it like black text on white background. Don't make it some color or anything like that. Just make it almost like a Word document. Literally, you can make it in like Microsoft Word, and that is usually
Yeah.
the best thing you can do. I did that years ago where I was like, "Oh, I'll make this super fancy," and you get like no responses because it gets filtered all the time. Like as soon as there's a
Yeah.
background color, it's like, "Nope, sorry." Um, what else? You guys got anything else?
Well, you mentioned this one thing. I think I don't remember when, but we it was on one of these live streams. How you were saying develop projects for the company. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
That
Can
was a
you
good
go
idea.
over
Yeah.
that? Because I thought that was gold.
yeah, absolutely. So let's say I wanted to apply for a particular type of company, right? So there's two aspects to that. Number one is you can look up a company's tech stack. You can't always do it, but you can usually find it, particularly if you see that they're applying for something or that they're like what Chris was saying, what they have listed as like this is what you need to apply or what we're looking for. They're basically telling you their tech stack. So build an application using that tech stack and then also build an application that uses their technology or is adjacent. So like for example, uh like around me cruise lines are huge, right? In South Florida like cruise lines are huge. So something you could build is a web app that tracks cruise ships or does something that's like adjacent to the industry that you're looking for because when they look at your portfolio and see hey this person built like a cruise ship tracking app they're going to be like this dude kind of knows the industry already right or he's able to build something that works for the people that use our business and I think that's huge so use the tech stack that they are using already and then do something that's in that industry so if it's like a restaurant that you want to work for build an ordering app and it doesn't have to actually function necessarily but it's a bonus if it does because if you can say hey I built an app that like 3,000 people are using and I make however much money a day even if it's like $20 a day I make $20 a day on an app that people are using that's huge to a company like you built that on your own and you're making money off of it huge so yeah I would recommend that as well what else you
Nice.
guys got
I
I
mean,
guess
it's simple. I would also have a simple one too, is just also keep updating your resume. Like
yeah
people forget about this all the time. I even forgot about it at times, like keep
Mhm.
going back and updating it, putting your best projects on, putting your best work on there, modifying how you're saying things. And a good tip is too, when you're listing, like, especially when you're a new developer, when you're listing out like jobs that you've done or like work that you've done for people or like projects, explain like what's a problem I ran into? How did
Mm.
I solve it? Right? Show your problem solving skills in the description of, that task or that project or that employment. So like, oh, well, I was building a website for company X. They need this feature. This was really tricky, but the way I addressed it was I used this, this language and blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, do
Yeah,
that because it shows you know how to solve problems and it shows that you're like thinking about things that way, which is important.
very cool.
Mhm.
I like
I
those.
have
All
one
right, I
more,
got. Go ahead.
and then you can finish out. So my other one is apply for jobs that are outside of your comfort zone, like stuff that you don't know, uh, because you never know when you're going to get hired. And you never know how desperate the companies are going to be are if your resume is going to come across their desk at the right time. So even if you're not qualified for it, apply for it. Like I've done this so much that there was one dude, I don't know, I must have sent him a resume on the wrong day, but he emailed me back like 3 times telling me how specifically unqualified I was for this position. He's like, how could you even apply for this job? You have none of the qualifications that we're looking for. And I was just like, I'm sorry about that. I just figured I would apply and I could learn it on the job. And he's like, that's such an obnoxious. But like the thing is, it's still got
You
to. I mean,
got
it
his
got a response from
attention,
him.
dude. You got
Yeah,
his attention, which
Hmm.
is 90% of the game. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then like you never know, because you might do the same thing, and that response, like, I'm willing to learn on the job, but they'll be like, oh well, this guy has the right attitude, and they'll realize that attitude is way more important than skills.
Yeah.
Skills you can learn anytime, but attitude is so much more difficult. And so if you have the right attitude, the skills will come later.
Yeah. All right, I got two which are gold. Okay, these are tricks that will land you a job nearly 100%, but
Okay, I've got my notebook out.
yeah, but
Let's
they're a
go.
little bit, they require a little bit more effort. So the first one is not as cool as the second one, but the first one is use a video resume. Most people are applying with text resumes, right? But if you send a video to somebody's email, they're almost guaranteed to click play because it's curiosity. They're like, why did this person, and use their name, say, hey, Russell, I made you this video to personally tell you why I should be hired for XYZ job. You're almost guaranteed that they're going to actually press that play button. And then you can actually engage with somebody on a level that's different from like paper, right? Because you're a human being, and that's what companies hire, human beings. They don't hire sheets of paper. So express yourself as a human being. That's number one. I think that one's gold. Like if you
That's a
really
really
want a
good
job,
This is
apply with
gold.
a video resume. Just make a 2, 3, 4 minute video, host it on YouTube, unlisted or whatever, and send them a link to it or whatever it is. Okay. What are you laughing at?
Make it public with all your other video
Yeah,
that you're
yeah,
applying for.
List hundreds of videos.
My YouTube channel, my videos to HR.
Yeah.
That would actually be a pretty interesting YouTube channel.
That
Just like
would.
how many times you have to apply before you get a job.
Yeah. That would be pretty cool. All right. And this is number two, and this one's gold, but it requires a little bit of money and a little bit of ingenuity. So there's two options here. Number one is send something sweet to them, like donuts, or go to their office with donuts and your application. Like paste your application to the inside of the donut box and bring them donuts because everybody loves donuts, right? And they're gonna be like, dude, that guy brought us donuts. He should be hired, right? Everybody else just gave us a sheet of paper. And the last one, which is similar but even sneakier, you can go on Amazon and buy these boxes. They're clear boxes. Okay. This is like if you really, really, really want a job somewhere. Okay. You can buy these boxes. They're like 20 or 30 bucks. Okay. And they have a key or a code on them. And you fill that box up with candy and you send it to them along with your resume. And you say, hey, I'm going to give you the key or the combination when you give me an interview. And so you send it to their office, and the only way that they can open this box is by calling you or getting you in for an interview. Gold, absolute gold. And they're going to be like,
Nice.
dude, how creative is this person, right? How out of the box is this thinking, right? You can't do what everyone else is doing and expect to get better results. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's just applying on LinkedIn. Easy apply, easy apply, easy apply, because it's easy. Find the
Also,
job
most of
that
the
you
easy
really
apply
want
are
and do
totally
something
spam.
cute. Yeah, they're all spam. So
Yeah.
find a job
All
that you
there.
really want and do something that's way out of the box, like way out there, right? Make a big sign in the parking lot. It's like, hey, like with your resume on it, right? Like I heard this before from somebody in the group, and I won't say their name, but they were saying like I know like you posted something earlier that was like what should we do better, right? And something that everybody's going to say is offer more stuff for free, right? And I think that's awesome, and I think it's great when people offer things for free. But the truth is, if you want a job to pay you $100,000 a year or more, how are you expecting them to do that if you're not willing to invest in yourself, right? If you're not willing to put in a few dollars a month into making yourself better or applying for a job, right? If you really want a job somewhere, spend some money to get that job. You may not get it every single time, but the reality is, like, everybody who's doing free stuff out there, they're not finding jobs because they're doing everything free, right? You have to invest in yourself. It's a mental thing more than it is anything else. If I invest my money in something, I've put skin in the game and I'm more willing to get a result. I'm more likely to get a result, right? So yeah, that's what I have. Those are some of the gold that I
You
can share
make
with you guys.
you make a great point there, Russ. I
That is a
remember
good point.
back in the day. I mean, I'm sure nobody else has done this, but it's possible to find information for free on the internet that you might
Yeah.
have to pay for. And so there might have been a time when somebody gave me access to a whole bunch of like information, coding books, all these different things. And I
Yep.
thought, this is it. Like I have the secret key. I'm
Yeah.
going to be absolutely brilliant. But the thing is, knowledge isn't all of it, because
Yeah.
knowledge is free. Knowledge is not power, even though they say that saying. But on top of knowledge, there are some other things like accountability, like
Yeah.
mentoring, that really make the difference. And literally for myself, I know once I put that skin in the game, that was the moment when I was able to really transition from just being this guy who had a treasure trove of information that one day I'll process, to all of a sudden being the guy who puts that into action. And so for anyone who may have that treasure trove of information and who's kind of looking to put it into action, maybe even looking for a job, if you're looking for a results-based group mentoring, we do have that available every Saturday after these Facebook Lives. You can actually find out more information for yourself at codemoves.io/mentoring, and you can come join us and help land your first coding job.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really great point. So yeah, with that, I hope you all find your first job in web development or development, and let us know like when you do, because we want to give you a big high five. It's a lot of work, but it pays off, and you only have to do that once, and then you're in. Like once you have a job as a developer, it's significantly easier to get your next job.
Oh
And
yeah.
you can always escalate, right? Like take that job at 20,000 because the next job will be higher and higher and higher. And we live in a world where you don't just have one job your entire life. You have like one job every like
6
10
months.
months. Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
So just take that first one, whatever it is, like Leonore, like get in there and get an internship if you have to, because it's way, way easier. And like Randall said, if you're interested in joining group mentoring, it's codenoobs.io/mentoring. We will see you guys at 10. So we'll take a quick break and then we will see you inside and keep you accountable so that you can land that job. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week. Peace and love.
Later.
Peace.